everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Well, I actually remember for once, there will be a lot of spoilers here, so here's the spoiler warning for many of the chapters that I'm about to talk about. So, we're just going to jump right into it with One Piece, which starts with, I don't know if it's the conclusion probably not the conclusion. The continuation of Pound's cover page, which then goes into the aftermath of Frankie running over Big Mom, where everyone's shocked and dismayed by it. Nami continues to thank Frankie for saving her, as Jinbei and Robin are getting ready to join the fray. Luffy knew he can count on Frankie and heads off to try to fight Kaido. Shinobu and Momonosuke are running away from Yamato, who, after Luffy says that they can trust him, Yamato then says that he's Odin, and they're both horrified and keep running away from Yamato. Luffy ignores it and just keeps going, so he can try to get to Kaido. Big Mom wakes back up and is completely pissed. The rest of the Straw Hat Samurai allies are getting ready to... they're realizing fighting against the nobody, like the regulars and the pleasures and the lower grunts won't do anything. So they plan on going after the Topiropo to try to just distract them for as long as they can. Meanwhile, at the same time, Big Mom more or less compliments the Straw Hats by having so many rare creatures while she's talking to Brooke, who then pretty much thanks her by saying, "You have fine taste." And Frankie basically also tries to intrigue her by saying he's a cyborg. Nami wants to run away from Big Mom, but Frankie, being a true man, says absolutely not, and he wants to make Luffy Pirate King by being able to defeat Big Mom, and starts his radical beam, only for the numbers to blast through from the other room with the other half of Frankie Shogun that Usopp and Chopper were in. Oh, we also figure out that what the numbers are, which are failed attempts at ancient giants from Punk Hazard, which is interesting. They just look like Oda-style monsters, but apparently they're Oars height, which means they're extremely big. They're bigger than even regular giants. So I guess in timeline, that means Caesar must have been working at Punk Hazard for a long time. Maybe. I'm not too certain. But Frankie notices the tank uses his radical beam on one of the numbers, but then Big Mom takes the opportunity. But Jinbei and Robin work together to throw her away. They then complement each other and... think Frankie either No, I don't know what happens with Frankie there, but I think or the number lets go of the tank. They then get ejected so that Frankie can make Frankie Shogun. But then we go to Luffy continuing his climb, meeting Zoro out of nowhere, who wants to go up to beat Kaido also, but Queen was right there and was getting pissed that he was being ignored, and then grabs them out of the air, full dinosaur brontosaurus mode, with then King also being ready. He would have stopped them too. So they're then tossed back into the fray. We then see Frankie Shogun being made. Sanji's okay because of the raid suit. Then they all gather in one spot and you get the Avengers Assemble moment where every one of the Straw Hats are there ready for battle. And Luffy says he's going to go and take out Kaido and leaves the rest of the mayhem to the rest of the Straw Hats. So... next week will end up being the beginning of the actual fight, meaning basically it's all the Straw Hat crew versus Big Mom, while Luffy, I'm not sure. The way it's all set up is, well, in truth, the whole Straw Hat crew might be able to fight Big Mom if they're together, but there's too much there. You'll have probably Sanji and Zoro taking on King and Queen, while Luffy gets away, and then the rest fight off the numbers and Big Mom. That's a big ask, but we'll end up seeing. It'll end up being a big prove-it moment, I guess, for some of the middle ground fighters, like Frankie and Brooke and Robin to some degree. And then it'll probably be a big prove-it moment also for Usopp, Nami, and Chopper, see if they can't pull their weight. Though it does look like there are no plans for Carrot to be along with the Straw Hats, so she's not even hinted at in the big spread of the Straw Hats, so we'll see. Anyway, that was a very good chapter. I enjoyed that a lot. It hypes up next week and did a fairly good job escalating things, so I wonder where it'll go from here, where all the fights end up and so on, because in truth, it does look like sooner rather than later, probably when Luffy gets up to Kaido will be the end of Act 3, and then we'll get the break in between and see how the rest of the world is on fire. So it'll be good. The next couple of weeks are probably going to be very good. So I'd give that one a solid B. Next, we're going to move on to My Hero Academia, which starts with, shows the devastation of Gigantomachia, but all the students are safe. Even Tokoyami is still protecting Hawks, which I am surprised by, who was very much in another direction. But Momo then explains that they only survived because they weren't considered worthy enemies, as we see Gigantomachia's extra monster form as one of the pro heroes ends up saving all the kids and telling them that they basically made all the right decisions, and don't doubt that, but two of them already are. The Mushroom Girl and Mineta are already doubting their abilities and their decisions, as everything's in absolute shambles. And then it shows Gigantomachia destroying a city with a whole bunch of villains behind them and the Villain League on his back, and Mineta thinks they made everything worse. The doctor is laughing hysterically, explaining that all the Nomus are based off of Gigantomachia, and the fact that he's on the move means everything's in trouble, and the fact that Shigaraki actually woke up meant Hero Society is gonna crumble. And then we cut back to Shigaraki, who's fully healed, Aizawa looking dreadful, and so on. Todoroki ends up shooting ice at Endeavor, telling him basically that he should cool off while he can. Bakugo seems shaken, maybe? Not really I don't know how to put it. Maybe he's just guarding Gran Torino. He's gritting his teeth. Deku sprints forth to go to Aizawa, and the one guy who can freeze rocks in place, I don't quite remember his name, told Deku to run, but he said no because he's angry. Shigaraki plans to kill them all, but his body starts falling apart, which isn't surprising. I saw that coming too, because he's not fully compatible. Deku ends up realizing it as Shigaraki's trying to figure out what's going on, and Deku already did, that his power isn't quite ready with his body yet, and so that's the reason he's falling apart. We also see that Miriko, Rabbit Hero, is being brought to safety, meaning she will survive, more or less, which I had figured. But Shigaraki also knows that his hyper healing is working, so he's just going to kill them all with Decay, but Deku gets everyone up with Black Whip, and then unlocks Shimura's quirk, which is Float, meaning he can more or less fly, and he decides to go in to punch Shigaraki and bring him down. So that's the chapter there, and once again, they switched it again. This is like the 8th time they've switched between the heroes winning and the villains winning. At this point, it's probably going to end in a stalemate. Once Gigantomachia shows up, Shigaraki will pull a retreat because his body's falling apart, which I saw coming. I thought that was one of the reasons why the heroes could win in the end, but he just keeps going back and forth. It makes it almost aggravating, because at this point it's going to end up in the tie, where Shigaraki ends up having to leave because his body can't handle it and he'll disappear. I had originally thought that they would win and take him to Tartarus, where then the time away would allow him to heal and get used to the quirk, but now it just looks like he might run away and disappear, and then the kids will probably go back to school for a while, like finish out this year and probably go into the second year, maybe even the third. I don't know whether he'll skip it or not. I don't know. The way that he seemingly wants to keep them in school, which is a nice change of pace. It would be really nice if we did see them genuinely go to all 3 years instead of just skipping it without a reason, and you see them grow would be nice. It'll also be interesting to see how they more or less live with the fact that they saw so many heroes die. They're very much going to have to be the new crop of lower heroes and have to deal with so much more while still being students. So the coming chapters and arcs will be very interesting, because at this point it has to be a tie, but I could see... It's hard, because I could see them losing still if Gigantomachia gets there and just hammering everyone away, meaning Shigaraki wins, but he has to hide after the win because his body is not right. Or Gigantomachia gets there, they're all still willing to go, and Shigaraki more or less says we're getting out of here, so he can get his body correct, adjust it to the quirk, and then show back up when he's stronger, and by that point then Deku and Ko would also be stronger. We also see Gran Torino is still alive, at least for now, though I still think Shigaraki stole his quirk, so he's now just a regular old man, if he even survives the wound he got. So that was the chapter. I would give that one an A. It was a good chapter. I'm slightly aggravated that they keep flipping back and forth between the heroes and villains winning, but at this point, I can say it was a very good chapter, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. So, next, we are on to Burn the Witch, which starts with the color page, which I think they said would happen for every one of the chapters. I think it's only a 4-chapter limited series, meaning we only have one more. It starts off with one of the head of the leaders, or the head leader, one of them, talking with Noelle and Nini's boss, basically explaining that Balgo has got his execution order set to go. He'll be executed, so we then go back to Noelle and Nini's situation of having one of the leaders there who plans on killing Balgo quickly, or capturing him so he gets the reward and the notoriety. He's also expecting Noelle to know who he is, and she doesn't, which then angers him. Bangnef, I think his name is. The Top Horns. He's also less angry that one of them at least recognized him. He then calls in a barricade, dragon barricade, and barricades in Balgo because of his mantle. His little cloak-like thing. That gives him away that he's an employee and that they can get him and detain him rather easily. He then blames the attack on the newspaper on him so that he gets caught, that he's the main culprit, giving the more or less rest of the employees who are more or less uninvolved with the whole situation a reason to go after him at this moment. He doesn't really care if it makes sense about the whole thing or not. He's just going to get him, and then he explains to Noelle and Nini that they passed order to execute Balgo, and explains he'll have a bounty on his head, 72 hours, and everyone will be pursuing him, which at least makes Nini sweat a little, with concern. Bangnef explains that he'll take him into custody first so that he's remembered for taking down such a dangerous criminal, more or less. Noelle more or less makes fun of him, which then angers him considerably. He then shows off some of his power. Nini then praises Noelle for the insult. Noelle then goes and saves Balgo, and Nini is behind Bangnef and asks him a question. Did he bring Macy into the world? Into the reverse London. He then says yes, but she had found the dragon herself, and that she would have been in reverse London pretty soon, because she had a lot of magical power. With that revelation, she got distracted and lost her weapon. That falls into the hands of Noelle, who then blasts Bangnef, and Nini saves Macy, and they all get away. So they leave Macy's dragon behind. Bangnef summons his rider dragon. Macy's upset that they left the dragon behind. She then explains more or less why she left her group in regular London with Nini and so on. She felt she never fit in and so on, but then she found Ellie, her dragon, started to raise it and so on, and more or less was manipulated to go to reverse London to... She thought she'd be special because she was being called in. Then Bangnef shows up out of nowhere and lists off Noelle and Nini's crimes, but then says it's whatever because it's been finalized that Balgo can now be basically executed right then and there. No need to capture him anymore. And then Balgo's extremely confused about what's going on, and then you just see the Macy's dragon, Ellie, upset back at the newspaper place. So that's the chapter. It's, again, still moving very quickly, it's moving well, which is good. It makes everything interesting and so on. You do want to keep reading it. However, again, I don't know how he's going to wrap everything up in chapter 4. That's the big question, at least for me. So I wonder if, again, he does more limited series, like more chapters, or if he's just leaving it for the anime to continue and more or less finish what he started here. We'll end up seeing, but I do want to see what next week has. It's probably going to be another long chapter. I don't know. But yes, that was this week for Burn the Witch, and I would give that one a B. It was a good chapter overall. Next, we are on to Black Clover, which starts by showing the popularity poll results from Japan. A great color spread, which some of the results I was actually really surprised by, having Asta be number 1. But Yami came in at number 2, and Charlotte was surprisingly at number 3. That one is genuinely surprising. Yuno, Noelle, Nero, Gauche, Luck, Leopold, and then Magna, which again, I'm surprised. Usually I think these have mostly, well, not mostly, I don't know. I would have expected a little bit of a different cast, but can't complain. This one's at least pretty interesting. It starts where it left off last week with Noct and Asta being in the captain's meeting. Everyone's prepared to attack when Noct, who is a monster, shows that he's a devil host, but has devils, I think, or even some sort of shadow monsters, basically holding back all the captains who got up ready to attack. Asta, I think he sees them as devils also. And it's a pretty intimidating panels. He then explains he's qualified to be there, and Julius explains he's the Black Bull's vice captain, and that he's been spying on the Spade Kingdom this whole time, but Julius didn't even know he was a devil host. They're all confused that he's the vice captain of the Black Bulls, and he was spying on the Spade Kingdom, as we already saw. Jack is actually the only one who pseudo-recognizes him, and is about to ask more or less who he is. Then Noct says that man is gone, cutting Jack off. Then he explains they're short on time, that Noct would like to move on to the main topic, tells everyone to sit, more or less explains the situation in the Spade Kingdom, that they intend to open the gates of the underworld, and the preparations for the advent of Lipfoth, I think. I mean, there's a Q in the front, but you gotta ignore it, because there's no such way to say Q without a U next to it, but I don't know. I'll end up hearing it someday and saying it right. And they have it in Spade Castle, and Yami and Vengeance are going to be the sacrificial offerings to open the tree, or open the gates of the underworld. And he explains that it'll take 7 days, or from this point on, over 7 days. Basically he's saying from now, where they are that day, it'll take 7 days to open all 7 levels, and they'll be opened up gradually. Inside there are 10 devils, and he said that the deeper the level, the stronger the devil. The upper levels are about equivalent to the Dark Triad, meaning none of them are equipped for it. And if the final devil shows up, which is Lucifero, which I think is Dante's devil, if he emerges, the world's over. And if he emerges, Vengeance and Yami are dead. However, they're still alive, no matter how many gates are opened, as long as the last one is not opened. They're all now wondering how he could have gotten so much information by himself in such a dangerous area. Rill asks why the Triad would do something so dangerous, and Noct more or less says there's no reason that would be any good to understand. He then explains they've all seen them at work, and he says they're all just scum who only care for themselves and have no real care about anything else. And to summarize, they're just evil for the sake of evil, pretty much, and that he hates those types the most. They show how intimidating he will be, and explains that even if God and the devils forgive them, he won't, but he says that he can't take them on his own. He'll do his best, but that's about it. And he plans on making Asta into the ultimate warrior, and says anti-magic holds the potential to defeat them. And it explains in 3 days the gates of the underworld will open, but they're going to retake Yami and Vengeance before then and destroy the tree. They'll end up building up an elite force around Asta that can defeat the devils and then assault the castle. So basically Asta has 3 days to learn his devil powers. So much for 6 months of training. Now you got 3 days. It'll be interesting to see how he goes with this. He can go basically one of 2 ways, which is the normal shonen way, which is in 3 days, Asta will be strong enough to stop the Dark Triad and save the world. So it'll end up being, well then, who's the big next villain? However, I can see this taking a Hunter x Hunter turn, which is in the 3 days, he won't be ready, but they won't have any other choice. Unlike with Hunter x Hunter, where they basically told Gon and Co, no, you just aren't strong enough, and so they didn't go at all. Here, they will be forced to have him go, and they will lose miserably, which would be bad news for Yami and Vengeance and the country, the whole continent as a whole, and again leave them where they have to leave the continent to grow stronger before returning, leaving the whole of the Clover Kingdom and everything we know of this world in shambles. But I don't know which way it's going to go. But for now, it's at least fairly interesting. It makes the chapters you want to look for. Each chapter is something you really want to read. So I look forward to seeing what happens in the next few chapters. So that was that. With Black Clover, I would give that one a solid B, as it was very good overall and continues to move forward. Now we're on to Jujutsu Kaisen, which starts with Sukuna more or less telling Itadori to take a good look at the destruction Sukuna just did to all of Shibuya, all the city. All the memories start coming back to Itadori, and he vomits and is in shock. It then goes that he wondered why he had to be executed, and then now he knows, or more or less he does see it now, more so than before. And he remembers his grandfather's words before he died is to help people and be surrounded by people before he died. He then gets up and needs to fight someone, it seems, to get his mind off of things, I'm assuming. We then see Nanami out and about, even though he's practically half a corpse, and see Mahito, the spirit bender guy, more or less see him and follow him as Nanami takes out a whole bunch of low-level cursed spirits. He more or less is thinking of retirement because he's very much tired of everything, and he slaughters all the low-level cursed spirits. When Mahito puts his hand on him, Nanami says he didn't even see him there, or he didn't even know he was there, and Mahito says that he was there the whole time and wants to chat with him, but Nanami seems well out of it by that point. How is Hiyabara? Hiyabara is one of the other staff, from what I can gather. Probably his, I see he's seeing Hiyabara, which I think was his partner. I don't know whether he's alive or dead or not, but they end up both spotting Itadori. He then more or less struggles within himself, but then tells Itadori that he's got it from there before Mahito kills him. Itadori then freaks out and goes on the offensive, and it looks like we're about to have their big showdown as Mahito has killed several people close to Itadori. So next week should be interesting as a fully healed Itadori, now very angry, goes toe-to-toe with Mahito. I don't really know where it's going to go from there. I don't know. I don't even know where it'll go after this arc, to tell you the whole truth. I wonder if they're going to get Gojo out of there. I have no idea. That'll be a very interesting chapters as I just keep more or less reading along. Though I think Itadori will end up winning this one. Man, that's a bad prediction. I'll keep it. I'll say he probably wins this one, but then loses against the other cursed user who's Gojo's old friend. So we'll end up seeing. This was a good chapter, though. Seeing the aftermath and Itadori's reaction, as well as the ultimate fate of Nanami. I would give that one a solid B. So next we are on to We Never Learn, where the chapter starts with Noriyuki having a rather bizarre dream about Asumi. Doesn't seem to realize it's a dream quite yet, but ends up realizing it after there are three of them, and they're all teasing him. He then wakes up, but Asumi is randomly passed out, which is rather funny. He then shouts at and asks why she is there. She then explains that she was meant to wake him up, but forgot, or fell asleep herself. She's then explaining something, but he gets distracted, and he blames the dream for it. He then explains that that day is the island's big annual festival. Apparently they're having a maid tea house, as the students suggested it. Noriyuki is somewhat confused by it, and the two older teachers seemingly didn't mind, so. And they're also impressed he made up all the costumes really quickly. Two of the older students come up, and the one that he helped when she passed out has her hair in a clip. The other girl that has become more or less her friend asks Noriyuki if she's cute, and he says that. She then hides behind her friend, and then Asumi shows up with her mother, also in maid outfits, and they plan on helping. He's then distracted once again by her, and then they notice there are no customers there. One of the students says it might be because they're outsiders. Asumi and Noriyuki, the one punk kid who was the big troublemaker in the last chapter, more or less says who cares if they're mainlanders, and then his partner in crime more or less says look who's talking. The Asumi's mom has an idea of having them hand out flyers. Noriyuki notices that he can feel that the people aren't super comfortable with them. They ended up handing out all the flyers without him even realizing it, and Asumi ends up partaking in the festival's festivities, buying a whole bunch of stuff, and suggests they have a date there while they're there. She also then pseudo-teases him on how come he never compliments her. She then says she's joking and moves away, teases him some more. He then thinks back on some of the past events, like her kissing him and him helping her through the whole studying and so on, and buying tickets to more or less this world's version of Disneyland, I'm guessing, to some degree, where then she turned him down, and he's more or less watching her and admits he fell in love with her. She then teases him again. Then we see an old man who's having a backache, but then yells at them for being mainlanders and wanting to help him. It would hurt their islander pride. Asami ignores that and more or less fixes his back, while the other ones chastise him, thinking she's hurting him, only for it to be revealed that no, she fixed him. Asumi says he shouldn't carry heavy loads, but he basically ignores them. Noriyuki then carries the things of ice that the old man was carrying, and more or less convinces him that he can help the old man. The old man then says that they have 10 more deliveries of the heavy ice, which then more or less threw out Noriyuki's back, and they had to work for free, and Asumi says he's too nice. They get back to the stand, and practically the whole festival's there now, mostly because they helped the old man, who was apparently the biggest grouch in the entire island. They then, they call them the young couple, and they both say they're not a couple. They then offer drinks, and they drink, and we find out Noriyuki's a lightweight in terms of drinks. He then explains that his dad also was, but he'd always try to keep up. He then compliments her. She then says that she was just teasing him. He didn't have to compliment her. He then asks about the kiss. They then kiss, which I was surprised by. I was thinking it was over, and then it wasn't. She then pushes him more or less away. She then goes back to the stall, and he pulls out that he still has the tickets he bought many years ago now. The one student he helped, I don't know what her name is, was eavesdropping and wonders what's going on between the two. So I wonder if she's now going to try to help them get together, which would be funny. So that was that chapter. It was a fine chapter overall. I still continue to enjoy this arc more. I think it's better written overall as well. Less, to some degree, melodrama, which is always, in my opinion, better. So I do wonder where it'll go each week, or I do wonder where it'll go from here. So I would give that one a solid B. I did enjoy that one overall. Next, we are on to Undead Unluck, where it starts with a pretty cartoony color page showing all the members of the Union. It continues on from where it was last week, where Andy and co. basically tell Chikara that to join and kill God. He then says that he had never heard that part, and that he wasn't going to, and he starts running away. He turns around, hoping to trap both of them, and only sees Fuko, as Andy was already right behind him, asks if there's anyone in the school. When they look over at Fuko, she's more or less charmed by being inside a school area, because from what I can remember, she was a shut-in, so she actually doesn't know what the inside of a school looks like. So this is all new for her, from what I can gather. Andy then asks again if there's anyone in the school. Chikara says no, and says they're going to go inside to have a talk. Annie then tells Fuko to put on her blazer, so she more or less fits in. Fuko then asks what grade he's in, and he says he was actually a senior. She's then enamored by a classroom, as again, she's never been in one. Chikara then asks about the end of the world, and asks when it would happen. He then says if things proceed as normal and they keep up a losing streak, then it'll be April. And if the next penalty they get is the world ender, it'll be January, meaning next month for them pretty much. He explains he has two things for him, principles is to live and to atone. He then explains his backstory that he accidentally killed his parents. They were on a shopping trip and he wanted to carry the bags. He then turned around and looked at them when his more or less powers manifested and they couldn't move. A truck driver fell asleep behind the wheel and just kept going. He then more or less turned away quickly. They're to put down the bags, I guess, to help them or something, I don't know. Barely took a step toward them, and the truck hit them head on. His dad apparently died immediately, but his mom tried to survive, but didn't last a week. His mom's final words were to be someone who helps others. He then realized after the accident that it was his ability, and he thought of taking his life, but he couldn't, so he kept just trying to survive. From there, and it wasn't until he was kidnapped by the mafia that things changed, because he would have just kept trying to survive as long as he could, more or less. But then he saw an opportunity to help people with his powers, and so he plans on joining them because he won't run away anymore. However, Chikara's friend ends up entering the room, and because of Andy and his clothing ability, or his clothing mass or whatever, that shift's clothing, he actually was wearing the school uniform. And so the friend jokes that he's an old man who's doing the same grade for the 10th time, which is actually really funny. Fuko then laughs, and Chikara then talks to his friend as Andy goes over there and starts messing with Fuko, who's still laughing about the whole thing. Chikara's friend then explains he has a scholarship for college and so on. Then basically a union car shows up, and Andy says it's time to go. They then leave. The friend thinks he's more or less being kidnapped. As they're leaving, Chikara says, could they do their memory wipe thing? Because it would be safer that way. As the friend is about to reach the car to save him, his memory is gone. Then we see the effect it had on Chikara, that now no one will remember him outside of quite literally the Union. Fuko then is resolved to beat God as well, to make sure Chikara can go back to school and that the world doesn't end. She then finally asks if Andy could teach her how to fight, and it is then explained that they got Chikara to join, and then Chikara and her were trading to fight. Time passed, then it was December, so it's time for a new set of quests for them to go through. So they were waiting there with Apocalypse to get new quests. So it'll be very interesting where the next chapter sets up for the next arc as a whole. So that was the chapter. Again, a very good one. That is moving quite nicely, and there's a clear double set of villains. You have the main bad guy, God and Apocalypse in the background, and then you have the Under in the foreground, which is a nice way to set up both tension, because now they have to fight the Under because they're getting in their way, but they still have to do certain things because they have to stop Apocalypse and God. So it sets up a nice dynamic, and I'm very interested to see where they go with it from here, as well as to get more fleshed out stories from the other characters, because all we know is Fuko, Chikara, Andy, and Titania. So it'll be interesting to see many of the other ones as well. Get to learn who they are. So I would give that one a solid B, as we're entering a brand new arc. Now we're on to Mashle, Magic, and Muscle. Chapter starts off with Bomb Guy. I don't remember anyone's name in there. Dot, I think. Mash's first friend, who's with Dot, the Bomb Guy. Says his name is. We meet Love, who is the fifth fang of the main antagonist at this point. She's one of his members. She asks if they like her, if it wasn't for the fact that Dot more or less would have said yes, but now he's saving himself for Lemon, who I think is the girl that likes Mash. She then keeps asking, or he reasons that they barely know each other, so Finn is the friend. They barely know each other, and so she then changes it to, is she cute? So Dot would have normally said yes, but he's now saving himself, so he couldn't. So then she attacks. She then he blocks it. She then says that all girls are princesses, and they should all be told that they're cute. People should serve them, and if a guy can't do that, they should die. And you go... Oh my god. Even Dot thinks it's extreme, and Finn is scared, so then she asks the question again, and he's still saving himself for Lemon, so he can't agree, and he gets attacked again. She then explains that her dad said that guys who don't cherish her, she gets to kill them, and then Dot says that she should tell her dad that doesn't make any sense. He attacks her, but it ends up being just a smoke screen so that he can try to get her wand, but it doesn't work. He's then directly attacked. She then says he's weak, and that apparently the fourth Fang, his magic is that he can set a single target turn to stone, and that he had set that target for whoever opened up the underground door, meaning that Dot and Finn, have 30 minutes to defeat her. The fifth Fang, or Mash, will be turned into a statue. That she then more or less taunts them, saying that there's no way that would happen. No one's able to escape her tornado. She then feels bad for Mash because he has such weak friends, but she doesn't really care because he's going against Lord Abel, which is the main bad guy at this point, and more or less says that Mash is also clueless for going against someone who's so vastly overpowered, from what I can gather, at least, and it's the gist of what she's saying. She then says that Dot and Mash are so funny. Dot is in her monologuing, saying that more or less he thinks he's going to die because it's so painful and so on. She classes him. He then has a flashback to some bullies taking his stuff, but his sister more or less saving him, and then saying he should fight back, but he thinks it'll only be worse, and that she then says he gives up too easily, and so on. And then once he gets a real friend who gets mad on his behalf, that he should cherish that friend and never betray them. He then remembers when Mash more or less got angry at the other guy and the girl who was beating up Dot, and gets a Power of Friendship power-up, which is hysterical, as Finn is about to be brutally murdered. Dot expels the tornado, gets a cross on his head, which is his power-up, I guess, and she then attacks him again, but now they're evenly matched with power, and yeah, they explain it in-universe that the mark on his head now, the cross, children are born with it. When their emotions cross a certain threshold, their magic unleashes and they become a battle demons, is what it literally says. So it's basically a way to explain power of friendship in-universe for at least this one character. He then says what Mash said the time that Mash saved Dot to her, and now she's nervous. So it... Oh my god, this manga is ridiculous. It's so funny. And that was the chapter. I don't even know where this one goes. This one is very much reminds me of One Punch Man, where there's no predicting it. You just sort of go for the ride simply because it goes everywhere and makes fun of everything. The only thing I do know is that Mash will always win, which isn't even a bad thing. It just makes everything so much more funny when no one's taking it seriously. Or they are, but he's having no trouble. Now we are on to Chainsaw Man. The chapter starts with Makima getting dressed and dragging Denji along. We see a corpse party of people who were followers of Chainsaw, namely Power, who's just the head and a torso, I think. A bunch of other, also Beam, who was the shark devil, and several others we didn't even get the chance to meet. And Angel is there, though he's, I think, also just a torso. She explains they were all his followers and that they all intended to protect him, but they had a difference in faith. So Makima killed them, and they were all waiting for the day of resurrection when a bomb goes off right where she was walking, and we find out the guy who trained Denji in power, Kishibe, is leading an assault on Makima as they're all ready and going. Denji still more or less being in a state of just done. They're both not knocked out, but hurt from the initial explosion. A SWAT team goes in and starts firing at Makima, putting her full of holes. And Kishibe has the anti-Makima squad ready, who then sacrifice their life to make sure, or to summon the Hell Devil with the contract of killing Makima and casting her into hell. So they all cut their throat, and then she decides to command, or she says, "Save me, Chainsaw Man," with some semblance of a command. Him still being in a daze ends up waking up with, for some odd reason, his large intestine wrapping around his neck. The sacrifices summon the Hell Devil, who shows up as like a on-fire centaur and is ready to attack when Deji, wearing his intestines like a scarf, kill all the SWAT members, pulls his chainsaw cord, and kills the Hell Devil in one shot, which cuts him in like 5 pieces. And we get to see that Chainsaw Man in full Chainsaw Devil gear. Oh, wow. And he looks monsters. Yeah, I got nothing for that. Ugh. Yeah, that was the end of the chapter, with Denji's new monster look, killing any devil he desires, it seems. So Makima got her ultimate weapon, finally, it would seem, for whatever dastardly plan she has waiting in the wings, as now no one can really touch her, which is not good. It's not good at all. I don't know. I wonder what next week has for us, because every week this manga just is captivating to no end. I'd give that one an A, simply because every week I have to know more. Yeah, that was great. And with that is all the chapters for this week. I think they were all very good overall. I can't decide what was the best one. It was probably Chainsaw Man, as it almost always is, but the ones I guess I'm looking forward to the most seeing the next chapter is probably One Piece and Black Clover. I mean, I always want to see every chapter's next one, but those ones I'm more hyped for than the others. Chainsaw Man, I'm just always ready to read what's next, but that's all I've got. Anyway, I thought they were all very good, so if you enjoyed my ramblings, leave a like. If you did, timestamps are in the description, though you can see them in the chapters, in the chapter feature, I hope anyway. So, with all that being said, thank you for watching.